Welcome to Daily Papers, the podcast where we break down the most interesting new research papers so you don't have to.
Today we're tackling a huge question. Can artificial intelligence actually do science? Not just help scientists, but act as an AI researcher itself, from start to finish.
Right, we hear all about these powerful AI models, called large language models or LLMs. Think of things like ChatGPT. The dream is to turn them into what are called autonomous agents, AIs that can plan, execute tasks, and make discoveries all on their own.
But that dream runs into a big practical problem. How do you test if your AI scientist is any good? If you ask it to discover something totally new, how do you even know if its discovery is real or just nonsense?
You'd have to run expensive, time-consuming, real-world experiments just to check the AI's homework. It's a huge bottleneck. So today's paper, titled Firebench, Evaluating Agents on the Rediscovery of Scientific Insights, proposes a really clever solution.
Before we get to their solution, let's talk about the old ways of testing these AI agents because they all have major flaws. One approach is to have the AI researcher generate a whole scientific paper, and then you get another AI to read it and give it a grade.
That sounds a little unreliable. It's like having a student grade another student's final exam. You're not entirely sure you can trust the judgment.
Exactly. The other main method is to give the AI a very narrow, specific task, like improve the accuracy score on this dataset. This is easy to measure objectively, but it's more like an engineering problem than a scientific one.
It doesn't test the whole scientific process, does it? The creativity of designing an experiment, the reasoning to interpret the results and form a conclusion. It's just tweaking things to make a number go up.
And that's the core dilemma. Existing tests are either too subjective and hard to verify, or they're too simple and miss the bigger picture of scientific reasoning.
Okay, so this is where Firebench comes in. The name is an acronym for Full Cycle Insight Rediscovery Evaluation. It's a mouthful, but the core idea is simple and brilliant.
Instead of asking an AI agent to discover something totally new, the researchers ask it to rediscover a known scientific finding from a recently published paper.
Here's how it works. They take a real high-impact machine learning paper. They pull out the main research question, just the question, and give that to the AI agent. For example, a question might be, do language models get confused if the most important information is buried in the middle of a long document?
And importantly, that's all the AI gets. It doesn't see how the original human scientists designed their experiment. It doesn't get their code, and it definitely doesn't see their conclusions. The AI has to start from scratch.
It has to figure out how to test the question, design the experiment, write the computer code to run it, analyze the data it gets back, and then finally write up a conclusion based on the evidence it found.
And the genius of this is that the researchers already know the correct answer. Because it comes from a published, peer-reviewed study, they have a ground truth to compare the AI's conclusion against. It turns a messy, subjective evaluation into a clear, objective test.
It's like giving an AI a take-home exam, but you already have the official answer key. You can grade it properly and at a large scale.
So the researchers built this benchmark with 30 different rediscovery tasks, all from recent papers. Then they tested a range of the most advanced AI agents powered by the latest models like GPT-5 and Claude. So how did they do?
They were not great, to put it mildly. The very best AI agent system only achieved a success score of about 47 out of 100.
The paper uses a metric called an F1 score, which is a way of balancing how many correct claims the agent made versus how many it missed. And getting less than 50% means it's failing more often than it's succeeding.
And it gets worse. Their performance was incredibly inconsistent. The researchers would run the exact same agent on the exact same problem 3 times and get wildly different results. Sometimes it would get kind of close, and other times it would fail completely.
That's a huge problem for science. If your AI researcher can't reliably get the same result twice, you can't trust anything it produces. Reproducibility is the bedrock of science.
So the big question is, why were they failing? Was it just that they're bad at writing code?
Surprisingly, no. When the researchers dug into the logs of what the agents were doing, they found that the coding and implementation parts were actually handled pretty well. The biggest failures happened at the very beginning and the end of the research process.
The paper breaks it down into two main areas: research planning and conclusion formation.
In the planning stage, the AIs were bad at designing good experiments. For example, a classic part of science is using a control group to make sure what you're testing is actually causing the effect you're seeing. The AI agents consistently struggled to set up these kinds of controlled comparisons.
And then, at the other end, in conclusion formation, even when they managed to run a decent experiment and get data, they were bad at interpreting it. They would look at the results and draw the wrong conclusions, or make big, sweeping claims that weren't actually supported by their own evidence.
So they failed at the most critical parts of scientific reasoning, not the mechanical parts, but the thinking parts.
So what's the big takeaway here? Is the dream of an AI scientist dead?
Not at all, but this paper is a really important reality check. It shows us that simply having a very powerful language model isn't enough. The full process of doing science, that end-to-end cycle of planning, executing, and reasoning, is still an incredibly difficult challenge for AI.
And that's what makes a benchmark like Firebench so valuable. It's not just about giving today's AIs a failing grade. It's a diagnostic tool. It shows the research community exactly where these systems are falling short and where we need to focus our efforts to improve them.
It gives us a clear, rigorous, and scalable way to measure progress. It's a roadmap for building the reliable AI scientists of the future.
A clear roadmap for a very tough challenge. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in to Daily Papers.